I found out my husband cheated on me with my best friend, and they tried to blame me for it. Now, my in-laws are involved. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband, Daniel, 30, for 5 years. We have a 3-year-old daughter named Lily. From the outside, our life probably looks perfect. We met during our sophomore year of college when we were paired up for a group project in our economics class. Daniel was charming and intelligent, and we hit it off immediately. We started dating shortly after and fell in love quickly. 2 years after meeting, we got married in a small ceremony with our closest friends and family. Our relationship seemed solid, at least I thought it was. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we always managed to work through our issues. Daniel was supportive of my career aspirations, and I encouraged him in his. We made a good team, balancing each other out in many ways. My best friend, Emma, 29, has been a huge part of our lives since high school. Emma and I met in freshman year when we were assigned as lab partners in biology class. We bonded over our shared love of science and our dreams of becoming doctors. Throughout high school and college, we were inseparable. We supported each other through breakups, family issues, and academic stress. When I met Daniel, Emma was genuinely happy for me. She got along well with him, and the three of us often hung out together. After college, Emma and I both got into medical school, but at different universities. Despite the distance, we remained close, talking almost every day and visiting each other whenever possible. When Daniel proposed to me, Emma was the first person I called. She was thrilled and immediately offered to be my maid of honor. After our wedding, Emma moved back to our hometown and got a job at the same hospital where I was working. It was like old times again, and I was happy to have my best friend close by. Daniel seemed to enjoy her company too, and the three of us would often have dinner together or go out on weekends. When Lily was born, Emma was right there with us, helping out in any way she could. She would babysit when Daniel and I needed a night out, and she was always bringing gifts for Lily. I considered her family, and I trusted her completely. A few months ago, I started noticing changes in Daniel's behavior. He became more distant and spent an unusual amount of time on his phone. He began staying late at work more often, claiming he had important projects to finish. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, he would brush it off, saying he was just stressed with work. I confided in Emma about my concerns, but she kept reassuring me that everything was fine and that I was overthinking things. She suggested that maybe Daniel was working on a surprise for me or planning something special. I wanted to believe her, but there was a nagging feeling in my gut that I couldn't shake. One weekend in June, Daniel told me he had to go out of town for a work conference. It wasn't unusual for him to travel for work, so I didn't think much of it. Later that same day, Emma called to let me know she was heading out of town to visit her family. Again, this wasn't out of the ordinary, as Emma often visited her parents who lived a few hours away. When Daniel returned home a few days later, he acted as if nothing had happened. However, I noticed he was being overly affectionate towards me, almost as if he was trying to make up for something. He brought me flowers and suggested we go out for a nice dinner, which was somewhat out of character for him. My suspicions grew, but I didn't have any concrete evidence, and I didn't want to accuse him of anything without proof. About a week after his trip, while Daniel was in the shower, I heard his phone buzzing repeatedly on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't look at his phone, as we both valued our privacy. However, something compelled me to check at this time. What I saw made me feel sick to my stomach. There were multiple text messages between Daniel and Emma. The messages were flirty and inappropriate, confirming that they had spent the weekend together, and it wasn't in a platonic way. I confronted Daniel that night after Lily had gone to bed. At first, he denied everything, claiming that I was misinterpreting the messages. But as I pressed him with the details I had read, he finally broke down and admitted that he had been having an affair with Emma for the past 6 months. Daniel begged for forgiveness, insisting that it was a mistake and that he didn't love Emma. He claimed that it had started innocently. Emma had been going through a tough breakup and had turned to him for support. One thing led to another, and before they knew it, they were involved in a full-blown affair. He said he had been trying to end it for weeks but didn't know how. I was in shock. My husband and my best friend had been sneaking around behind my back for months. I felt like my entire world had crumbled. All the times we had spent together, all the confidences I had shared with Emma about my marriage, it all felt tainted now. The next day, I confronted Emma. Her reaction was even worse than Daniel's. Instead of apologizing, she tried to blame me for the affair. She claimed that Daniel had come to her because he was unhappy in our marriage and that I hadn't been attentive enough to his needs. She said that I had been so focused on my career and being a mother that I had neglected my role as a wife. Her words stung, and I couldn't believe the betrayal from both sides. I left the house that night with Lily, going to stay with my parents. I needed time to process everything and figure out what to do next. The life I thought I had was suddenly revealed to be built on lies, and I didn't know how to move forward. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since I discovered the affair between my husband Daniel and my best friend Emma. I've been staying at my parents' house with Lily, trying to make sense of everything that has happened. The past 14 days have been a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and disbelief. Daniel has been relentless in his attempts to contact me. He's been sending text messages and calling multiple times a day, leaving voicemails filled with apologies and pleas for another chance. His messages are always along the same lines: that he loves me, that the affair was a terrible mistake, and that he wants to fix our marriage. I've been ignoring most of his attempts to communicate, only responding briefly when it concerns Lily. Last week, Daniel showed up at my parents' house unannounced. He stood on the porch, begging to talk to me, but I refused to see him. My father had to ask him to leave, which was uncomfortable for everyone involved. I'm grateful for my parents' support during this time. They've been helping with Lily and giving me the space I need to process my emotions. Emma, on the other hand, has been eerily silent. After our confrontation, where she tried to blame me for the affair, I haven't heard a word from her. I've blocked her on all social media platforms and deleted her number from my phone. It's strange how quickly someone who is such a big part of my life has become a stranger. I find myself replaying our conversations and interactions over the years, wondering if there were signs I missed. Was she always interested in Daniel? Had I been blind to her true intentions all along? A few days ago, I received a call from Daniel's parents. They asked if I would be willing to meet with them, saying they had no idea what was going on but that Daniel had mentioned we were having marital problems. I agreed to meet them at a local cafe, away from both sets of parents' homes. When I sat down with them, I could see the confusion and concern on their faces. They had always treated me like a daughter, and I had a good relationship with them. I decided to be honest and told them everything, about Daniel's affair with Emma, how long it had been going on, and how I found out. They were visibly shocked and disappointed. Daniel's mother started crying, apologizing profusely for her son's behavior. His father sat in stunned silence for a while before speaking. They told me that they would support me no matter what I decided to do, but they hoped I would consider working things out with Daniel. They reminded me of the good times in our marriage and suggested that perhaps counseling could help us move past this. While I appreciated their concern, I told them that I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet and that I needed time to figure out what I wanted. The situation became even more complicated when I learned that Emma had been trying to contact Daniel's parents as well. Apparently, she had reached out to them, spinning a story about how I had been emotionally neglecting Daniel, which led to the affair. She was trying to paint herself as a supportive friend who got caught up in a difficult situation. When Daniel's parents told me this, I was furious. Not only had Emma betrayed me by sleeping with my husband, but she was now actively trying to manipulate the situation in her favor. I made it clear to Daniel's parents that Emma's version of events was false. I explained that while our marriage wasn't perfect, I had always been committed to Daniel and our family. I told them about how Emma had been a constant presence in our lives, how I had trusted her completely, and how deeply her betrayal had hurt me. They seemed to understand and assured me that they didn't believe Emma's story. As the meeting with Daniel's parents came to an end, I found myself feeling emotionally drained. They asked about Lily and how she was coping with the situation. I explained that I was doing my best to shield her from the adult issues, but at 3 years old, she could sense that something was wrong. She had been asking for her dad more frequently, and it broke my heart to see her confused and upset. Before we parted ways, I told Daniel's parents that I had no intention of reconciling with him at the moment. I explained that I needed time to process everything that had happened and to figure out what was best for me and Lily. They nodded in understanding, hugged me tightly, and promised to respect my need for space. As I drove back to my parents' house, I found myself thinking about the future. The life I had planned with Daniel now seemed like a distant dream. I wondered if I could ever trust him again, or if the betrayal was too deep to overcome. And then there was Lily to consider. How would this affect her in the long run? The weight of these decisions felt overwhelming. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. I've started seeing a therapist to help me work through my emotions and to provide guidance as I navigate this difficult period. I'm focusing on being there for Lily and trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for her sake. As for Daniel and Emma, I'm keeping my distance from both of them while I figure out my next steps. The road ahead seems uncertain, but I'm determined to make the best decision for myself and my daughter, whatever that may be. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and the situation has taken an unexpected turn. Yesterday, Emma showed up at my parents' house unannounced. I was in the backyard with Lily when I heard the doorbell ring. My mother answered the door and came to tell me that Emma was there and wanted to speak with me. I was shocked and angry that she had the audacity to show up like this. After asking my mom to watch Lily, I went to the front door. Emma was standing there, looking disheveled and with tears in her eyes. She immediately started apologizing and begging me to talk to her. Against my better judgment, I agreed to speak with her but insisted we talk outside. As soon as we were alone, Emma broke down crying. She told me that Daniel had cut off all contact with her after I left him. She said she felt abandoned by both of us and didn't know what to do. Emma tried to apologize, saying that she had made a huge mistake and that she missed our friendship. She claimed that she never meant for things to go as far as they did with Daniel, and that she regretted ever getting involved with him. She said she understood if I could never forgive her, but she wanted me to know how sorry she was. I listened to her words, but I couldn't believe how selfish she was being. Here she was, crying about feeling abandoned, when she was the one who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I told her exactly that she had ruined everything, not just my marriage but our friendship that had spanned over a decade. I reminded her of all the times I had been there for her, how I had trusted her with everything, and how she had thrown it all away for an affair with my husband. Emma tried to defend herself, saying that she had been in a vulnerable place when things started with Daniel. She claimed that she had been feeling lonely and that Daniel had been supportive when she was going through a tough time. But I wasn't interested in her excuses. I told her that no matter what she was going through, there was no justification for what she had done. After about an hour of back and forth, with Emma alternating between apologizing and trying to explain herself, I had had enough. I told her that I never wanted to see her again and that she should leave. As she walked away, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of closure. Later that night, I received a call from Daniel. This wasn't unusual, as he had been calling regularly since I left, but this time he sounded different. He was crying, which was something I had rarely seen him do in all our years together. Daniel told me that Emma had been manipulating him for months. He claimed that she was the one who had pursued him, constantly seeking his attention and support. He said that at first, he thought he was just being a good friend to her, but things escalated quickly. He admitted that he should have put a stop to it immediately, but he felt trapped and didn't know how to end it without hurting everyone involved. He went on to say that he still loved me and wanted to make things right. He suggested marriage counseling and promised to do whatever it took to regain my trust. He talked about how much he missed Lily and how he wanted us to be a family again. As I listened to Daniel, I found myself feeling conflicted. Part of me still loved him, after all, we had built a life together and had a child. But another part of me felt like I could never trust him again. How could I believe anything he was saying when he had lied to me for months? I told Daniel that I needed more time to think about everything. I explained that his betrayal had deeply hurt me and that I wasn't sure if our marriage could recover from this. He seemed to understand and said he would respect my need for space, but he would be there whenever I was ready to talk. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking about my options. I thought about Lily and how this situation would affect her. I wondered if I should consider giving Daniel another chance for her sake, or if it would be better for her to have two separate but happy parents rather than two miserable ones staying together. I've been going back and forth on what to do. My head tells me that I should move on and start fresh without Daniel, but my heart isn't quite ready to let go. I've started seeing a therapist to help me work through my feelings and to get an objective perspective on the situation. For now, I'm focusing on creating a stable environment for Lily. She's been asking about her dad more frequently, and it breaks my heart to see her confused. I've been arranging supervised visits with Daniel so that Lily can maintain her relationship with him, but it's been difficult to see him and act cordially. As I navigate this complicated situation, I'm trying to take things one day at a time. I know I have a lot of thinking and healing to do before I can make any major decisions about my future with or without Daniel. The road ahead seems uncertain, but I'm determined to make the best choice for myself and for Lily, whatever that may be. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I finally made a decision about my marriage. After weeks of therapy, countless conversations with family and friends, and a lot of soul-searching, I've decided to file for divorce from Daniel. This wasn't an easy decision to come to. I spent many sleepless nights weighing my options, thinking about what would be best for Lily and for myself. In the end, I realized that I could never fully trust Daniel again. Every time I looked at him, all I could think about was his betrayal with Emma. I didn't want to live the rest of my life in doubt, constantly wondering if he would cheat again or if he was being truthful with me. When I told Daniel about my decision to file for divorce, he was understandably upset. He tried once again to convince me to give our marriage another chance, promising that he would do whatever it took to regain my trust. But I stood firm in my decision. To his credit, once he realized I wasn't going to change my mind, he didn't fight me on it. I think deep down, he knew that our marriage was beyond saving. We've started the process of working out the details of our divorce. We're trying to keep things as amicable as possible for Lily's sake. We've agreed to share custody, with Lily primarily living with me but spending regular time with Daniel. It's not an ideal situation, but we're both committed to co-parenting in a way that puts Lily's needs first. As for Emma, she has completely disappeared from both of our lives. I heard through a mutual friend that she's moved to another state, apparently trying to start over. I couldn't care less about what she's doing now. The friendship we once had is irreparably broken, and I have no desire to ever see or speak to her again. Lily and I have moved into a new apartment. It's smaller than the house we shared with Daniel, but it feels like a fresh start. Lily has been adjusting well to the new living arrangement. She still asks about her dad often, but we've established a routine where she video calls him every evening before bed, which seems to help. I'm focusing on rebuilding my life and finding my new normal as a single mom. It's not easy, but I'm discovering strengths I never knew I had. My job at the hospital keeps me busy, and I'm grateful for the support of my colleagues who have been understanding during this difficult time. My parents and even Daniel's parents have been incredibly supportive throughout this process. They've helped with childcare, offered emotional support, and have been respectful of my decision to end the marriage. Their support has made this transition much easier for both Lily and me. Daniel and I are learning to navigate our new relationship as co-parents. It's awkward and sometimes tense, but we're both trying our best to keep things civil for Lily's sake. We've started using a co-parenting app to coordinate schedules and communicate about Lily's needs, which has helped reduce direct contact between us. I've also started attending a support group for divorced parents. It's been helpful to connect with others who are going through similar experiences. Hearing their stories and sharing my own has been a source of comfort and has helped me feel less alone in this journey. As for my personal life, I'm not ready to think about dating yet. Right now, my focus is on healing, being there for Lily, and rediscovering who I am outside of my marriage. I've started taking a yoga class on weekends when Lily is with Daniel, which has been a good way to relax and clear my mind. Looking back, I never thought I'd be a single mom at 28. It wasn't the life I had planned for myself. But I've come to realize that sometimes life doesn't go according to plan, and that's okay. I'm stronger than I ever realized, and I'm proud of myself for making the difficult decision to leave a situation that was no longer healthy for me. To anyone going through a similar situation, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's okay to prioritize your own well-being. Infidelity is never the fault of the person who was cheated on. It took me a long time to accept that, but I finally believe it. Trust your instincts, seek support when you need it, and know that you have the strength to get through this. As I close this chapter of my life, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. It may not be the future I had originally envisioned, but I'm determined to make it a good one for both Lily and myself. I'm ready to move forward, leaving the pain and betrayal behind, and focus on creating a happy, healthy life for my daughter and me.